process where we learn to understand what we're going through and to let go of fearful attitudes that we have, fearful habits we have, things that stop us from being able to experience peace, things that stop us from being able to experience ourselves in the present. And it started in 1975 by Jerry Jampolsky, who wrote the book Love is Letting Go of Fear, where he brought together 6 children with leukemia and created principles of attitudinal healing. Some of those children are alive today and some passed away. And out of that work, there are over 130 centers around the world today doing this type of work, and we're now one of those centers doing that work. And it happens to be what changed my life, and I'd like just to tell you a little bit about that and have that take us into the singing part. I'm an oldest son, and therefore dutifully followed the models of my parents. My job, and both my parents were professional anxietists, and so different styles, but I chose to be nervously codependent. I'm a very good son. I no longer blame them anymore, by the way. It's my choice. And my mother sent me these tapes of Love is Letting Go of Fear for reading of the book. Kept it for a year before I ever listened to it. Plugged in the first statement within 5 minutes. I knew that's my answer. Because it spoke to my head and to my heart, it was completely practical, and had no hooks. You don't have to belong to an organization, things like that. So I was applying this in my life, and my friends were saying, "Dad, you're calming down, you're a lot easier to be around." So I was already in my own path of healing when I finished my doctoral studies and moved to Silver City, New Mexico, and was teaching at the university there. And for the first 3 years, just did the normal struggling of a person the first time at a university, first time full-time job as a professor. And I wasn't wonderful, but I was good, and I was all right. At the 4th year, a new band director showed up, and he was a classic bully. And I chose to be a classic victim. And I was completely and totally intimidated. He was one of these people that walks up and says, "Don't you think?" And I was trained by my dad to say, "No, you understand where the other person is coming from, then you find points to discuss." So I would say, "Oh yeah, I see where you're coming from." And I would, I get that. I'd walk away, and a few minutes later I'd say, "I don't believe one thing that that guy, or agree with one thing that that guy said." And I never had the courage to go back and confront it. That wasn't my skill set. My skill set was to understand where the person was coming from. Within 3 weeks we had a fight. He wasn't going to be in a class, and he turned over the class to a student that he knew that wasn't a music major. It happened to have come from the junior college where he was at. And there was an adjunct faculty member in the class as a member of this jazz ensemble. It did not ask the adjunct faculty member to oversee the class. And I called him up and just, I watched and said to the student, "Make sure that you let the faculty member know just what your plans are." That was all I said. He called me on the phone and he says, "You leave my music majors alone." Well, we worked really hard. There was only two full-time faculty members in the department with 10 adjuncts. And I said, "They're not your music majors, they're our music majors. They're my music majors, they're instrumental majors, and you have the voice majors, and you leave my majors alone." And I cowered, I didn't go on. So I called my friend, who was an administrator, teacher of people, in business and whatnot. He said, "Oh, he's like this is what you have to do. You have to declare your neutrality to him, tell him he's safe, or you have to just ask questions, have you considered this?" I was too chicken to even do that. He said, "If you don't do that, he will assume that you're out to get him and he will secretly plan your demise." That's exactly what he did. He planned directly for me to not get tenure. And from the very beginning, he badmouthed me in front of his students, in public, the whole next 3 years. And I would go and talk to the chair about it. He says, "Well, he'll get his, we're evaluating you now. We'll evaluate him later." Never once addressing the present situation. Okay. What blazes are we going to do about that? I could not get that band director to see me. I could not get the chair to take me seriously. I happened to live next door to the chair, and he was not my enemy. He just didn't understand me. His personality was closer to the band director. I felt like I was completely helpless. Now, if I had the chutzpah to walk up and just punch the band director in the nose, we probably would have gotten it all right. But I didn't have to do that. I was in my particular projection of the world and felt completely trapped. So the only thing I could do was use what had worked for my life in the past few years, which was attitudinal healing. And so I had to, the first principle of attitudinal healing is the essence of our being is love. Well, I wanted to believe that the essence of my being was love instead of a failure. Therefore, I had to believe that the band director's essence was love too. So when he had rallied another teacher who had been promised my job and didn't get it, so even though I brought her back part-time, I was the bad guy. So I had three people, the chair and this teacher who was bad-mouthing me on her own, even though I'd given her a job, and the band director. I blessed them every stinking day for 3 years. And I used language, I put a lily on their heart, every day for 3 years. And I did it purely for me. I couldn't do anything except find peace. The only way out was forgiveness. Well, looking at that was, but what they did was wrong, so I had to redefine forgiveness. I didn't define it, I accepted a redefinition of forgiveness, of release. So I released them from having any power over making me miserable. And I claimed my responsibility for making myself happy. Man, it was hard. When you're working with the same students and you see the crap still going on. But I was tired of being absolutely just frozen, terrified, and completely miserable. So in the second year, when I was fighting through this, to really follow these principles and feed myself on them and to forgive them, and not necessarily to excuse their behavior, but to release them. One of the adult students in the department came up to me. She says, Dan, I want you to tell you that last year, the department, this building was black. This year, the building's back to being white again. And it was wonderful when she came up and said, basically, keep at it. Keep fighting forgiveness. Keep moving forward. Because we're feeling the difference in the music building. Well, that second year, when I was fighting to find peace, came a student named Jana, and I'm using her name with permission, it's her actual name, and I have permission, who had lived in southern New Mexico on the other side of the state and was in an abusive relationship, and the husband abused both her and her daughter. And she was living in the refuge, going to college. She came across the state, went into the refuge, didn't even have her own apartment, was living in the refuge in the city, and came to college to get her counseling degree so she could help girls never have to go through what she went through. She walked in and she had an oratorio alto voice. That warm, rolling alto voice you could hear singing O Rest in the Lord from Mendelssohn's Elijah. Oh, just this incredible instrument. And by that time, my job was to make being at peace the goal of every lesson. And from my Christian background, I put the face of Jesus in every student's face in the lessons. And later on, I put mine there, because there is no difference, and we don't feel like we're all one. And I made sure that I didn't make myself more important or them more important. That hierarchy was not the issue. It was equal respect was the issue. That first year when she came, in the performance classes we would have on Fridays, where the students would sing for each other, she would stand like this and sing her song. Can you imagine that? We all tried to get her to do this. She would do it in the studio, but not in the music hall when we were singing for each other. And every student was in the same boat. They all had a reason to be nice to each other, because they were going to have to get up there and do it. Nope, the whole year. Well, I kept on making the goal of the classes being at peace because I was having to do that for myself. And the second year, which was my last year, her second year and my last year there, in this fall, she was the alto soloist at Haydn's Lord Nelson Mass and sang wonderfully. And in the spring, gave her junior recital. She let that in. Her mother told me after that recital that she had given me all the credit for that. She told me a year later she'd given me all the credit. For some reason we trusted each other, but she didn't tell me much of her story. I mean, I knew that she'd come away from the music thing and was in the refuge, and that was it. She's today a successful counselor in Denver. And I got a chance to be part of that. I got a chance to believe in her because I couldn't know anything else to do about my own survival except treat my student decently. I take no credit for that. I was trying to get through the worst experience that I can remember in my life because I don't remember my brother's whippings. Block those out of my life. So I grew up with violence in my life. And I came up into something where I couldn't see a way out. And the only thing I could do was find the truth of love. Try and find the power of forgiveness. And I was doing it for my survival. And dang if my students, and she wasn't the only one. That second year, the difference between the way my students sang the third year, the fourth year that I was there, and the fifth year that I was there, night and day. I saw miracles happening in the studio because I had to get my ego out of the way. I had to find just peace, find respect, find love. What I didn't know was going to happen was going to find that in my own performing. And as I taught, and I love understanding why I ask a student to do something. Some of my students get tired, of course, of my explaining everything else. I love why we're doing it. It came to me that helping Jana sing well and feel safe and feel like she can let her voice out was absolutely no different than my choosing forgiveness and finding a way to choose peace. So I started making sure that in all of my lessons that I was coming from a place of respect and trying to provide a safe place for my students to find their own voice. And in singing, since we're our own instruments, it's so easy to feel terrified because you're the one that's trying to get it, and if you fail, you as the instrument are the one that's failing. And it's terrifying. Like public speaking is, some people are more afraid of public speaking than they are dying. And so I came to realize that there was no difference for me. And that if I didn't make any difference, then I taught better. Now my students who know me know that I fail all the time. It's not that I don't make mistakes. I've made some doozies, let me tell you. But I have a way to face them, and a way to go through them, and a way to come back to it. And it's a little parallel, we'll talk a little more about this later, but when you're singing a song, and you blow a line, the only thing you can do is forgive yourself and get back in the song and keep going. And so singing just became this metaphor for me, the process that allowed me to choose to give up being a victim, give up being start to learn how to not be codependent, and to be able to perform authentically. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's why I teach. And I believe what excites me about this is that I believe in teaching singing as singing. I believe in discovering what we're doing as what you're doing. In other words, I'm not declaring it something else. I'm saying it is singing, but it also is the same thing. So in the lessons, I teach just singing, but then try to help the student understand and feel that themselves. And so I'm going to lead you through the first three priorities, I call them, in singing. One is an animated posture. Second is a yawning breath. And third is a supported sigh. Okay. Find your front hip bones, those points in front. Anterior, superior iliac spine. Right? Right? Okay. Then, would you put leaving your feet about a half a foot like this? So it's about like this. So you have balance in all four directions. There's no real secret about which goes front, which goes back. Most people like to put the one they kick with back. So, can you find that balance in all four directions? So when you're singing from the center of you. You're there in your own space, securely balanced. And then you want the weight toward the balls of your feet. Put it back at your heels where you don't want them, then back toward the balls of your feet. Have any idea why you want the energy in the balls of your feet? So that the muscles in your legs will be active. Okay? So the legs are actually holding you up, not passively just standing on the bones. You want your legs to actually be holding you up. And you want your knees to be unlocked. Make sure your knees are flexible. And if you do that, the muscles will be holding you up. And we'll talk about what that gives as well. Then tuck your pelvis under so you're straight like a dancer. Tuck your tailbone under so you're straight like in that dancing place. Then you stretch real tall and small in the back. It's like from the top of the pelvis to your lowest ribs, you see how tall you can make that space. Good. Then you make sure your chest is tall. Shoulders are back and down. And then the head is back balanced over the shoulders. Okay. And see if you can shift your weight back and forth and stay in that place. So the idea is that this isn't like a static place. This is where you're the most centered and everything's the most available to you. Okay. So would you then reach up to the ceiling? You might want to turn sideways so you don't clunk the person next to you. Turn your hands out. Then take your hands back and down. And if you're up on your toes, you want your heels to come down fast. And you should be in that position. Because when we're singing, you can't worry about some list like we just gave you, but you can have the feeling like you're just getting ready to jump. You're getting ready to move across stage. You're getting ready to fly. So at all times you're active, not passive. So that's the first priority, animated posture. Is there any questions about that?
Isn't it possible to have that?
Take an abdominal breath. Your chest cavity will expand, your throat will open, the instrument will open up here. I think of it as a big starburst. We'll talk about that. Yeah, so the second part is the yawning breath, the second priority. And so if you breathe in because you're yawning, then the abdominal breath, which gets the dantian engaged, all the way the breath band around, the rib cage out, rib cage getting tall, all of that will happen as one motion, including opening the throat, dropping the jaw, all of that. It will feel like one muscle happening. Let's try that together. Do that again. So before you sing, you gather everything that you need. So you don't sing from something you don't have. You sing from what you do have. And the three things that you have is enough breath, taking it away, that the diaphragm and the muscles of the abdomen make this piston work. Your weight's on the balls of your feet and your legs are in play, then there's a whole fascial connection between the feet and the top of the head that tells this piston to work well. And if for some reason the legs aren't in play, you have to squeeze this a lot harder to make it work. And then the instrument is available to you. The throat is down, the jaw and tongue are relaxed, the soft palate is raised up a lot, the back of the throat billows out. And so your resonating space, percentage-wise, is really hugely increased just because you're yawning. But you have the yawn, the breath, and this, all of which are available to you. Your resonant space, enough air, and enough energy to make it work. So let's feel that gathering of energy, space, and air. Good. So the third priority is called the supported sigh. The language I usually use is to sing from your dantian, supported by the legs, through a still opening instrument. Out your eyes, not out your mouth. Okay? And if you do that, then you know that the diaphragm is going to work, the rib cage is open, the throat stays open, and the balance between the airflow and the vocal folds working the speech energy is going to be healthy. And if it feels like it's ringing out here and you've got a big echo space like this around it, then you know that it's happening correctly. If it's down here and feeling like it's coming out the mouth, you're going to be stressing your vocal folds. And one of the ways to find that is literally just a sigh. So can you just be my echo? Okay, so that's only just the air part. Do that again. Now can you actively breathe into that yawning feeling and sigh? What happened? All that sound coming out, right? Do that again. Now this might seem way too airy-fairy for you, but what I believe is that you've made the space, you've made everything work, and you're not having to effort to make that sound. You have done what it takes for the sound to come out on its own. The first principle of attitudinal healing is the essence of our being is love. Your job is not to worry about your own worth. Your job is to get out of its way, so it can come flowing out of you and bless the world. And singing absolutely is like that. The more helpfully and technically better you sing, the more it feels like a release and with absolutely no effort. So we expend all this energy so the singing feels effortless. Feels like you're just releasing the truth that's inside of you. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff we do. But the experience itself is just this free releasing instead of you worrying about that. So notice what that happens. If you breathe into the yawn, if you keep in your body that breathing into the yawn feeling going, you'll notice something too when you sigh. So let's try that. Breathe into the yawn. Keep that feeling going and sigh. You see how much farther you went? Becomes a solidness into the tone. So let's do that again. Keep that feeling going. So as you manifest out into the air, into the world, you keep the feeling like you're breathing in. You continue to fill yourself. You never have to empty yourself when you're singing. And how many of you saw the Japanese band marching in a homecoming parade? It was very special. Absolute precision that brought them joy instead of militaristic. Yeah, that was so neat. I used to teach in a school district in California that had quite a few Oriental families in it. And in an elementary school that I taught, at elementary school, K through 4, there was a child who committed suicide because he was worried about his grades from the pressure his parents put on him. And so there is a part of that culture that's just unbelievably and of course all of our cultures have something like that. I mean, it's not, that doesn't make that a bad culture. Every one of them does that. There wasn't an ounce of that fear there. There was light. There was joy. And the tone, because they were a small band, they didn't have to overblow to make themselves sound good. They simply played well on their instruments, and it sounded complete. Compared my life now to 10 years ago, like when I came here, I am so much a happier person now than I was then. I'm so much a healthier person now than I was then. And it took the 10 years before that of attitudinal healing. It took me these 20 years of really sticking with it, to find peace over and over again, to fail, to make huge stupid mistakes, to get up, to go again, and realize that I get to change lives of students every week. I get to believe in people every week. I get the honor of seeing people blossom every week because I have the guts to decide not to be a victim anymore and slog through my own process. True, God provided me incredible teachers. I take no credit for that. I just had this wonderful string of teachers, and the only credit I'll take is that I paid attention. And what we're doing here in terms of offering support groups and offering workshops and trying to offer Montana Capella and try to have a positive environment there. And when we do early music things, try to join people together, bring connectedness. And though I have a spiritual perspective, I mean, this is all a spiritual path for me, and I believe there's larger realities. We're human beings. This is where we got to start, right here and now. And if we start worrying about defining that out there, instead of learning how to love ourselves here, we miss the opportunity to make whatever we do here authentic. And I grew up in a church and I have zero interest anymore of defining theological issues. There's just no consequence. Whenever you do your own work and share it, it continues going on. And that's what happens in music. That's what happens in art. So I guess I just wanted to, I look for an opportunity to share my excitement about why all this hard work, why those damn long tones of the trombone, why you got to do that, it's worth it. My favorite poet, American poet, is Walt Whitman. I hear bravuras of birds, bustle of growing wheat, gossip of flames, clack of sticks cooking my meals. I hear the sound I love, the sound of the human voice. I hear all sounds running together, combined, fused, or fallen. Sounds of the city, sounds out of the city, sounds of the day and night, talkative young ones to those that like them, the loud laugh of work people at their meals, the angry bass of disjointed friendship, the faint tones of the sick, the judge with hands tight to the desk, his pallid lips pronouncing a death sentence, the heave-yo of stevedores unlading ships by the wharfs, and the refrain of the anchor lifters, the ring of alarm bells, the cry of fire, the whir of self-streaking engines, and hose carts with promontory tinkles and colored lights, the steam whistle, the solid roll of the train of approaching cars, the slow march played at the head of the association marching 2 by 2. They go to guard some corpse. The flag tops are draped with black muslin. I hear the violoncello, 'tis the young man's heart's complaint. I hear the keyed cornet, it glides quickly in through my ears. It shakes mad sweet pangs through my belly and breast. I hear the chorus, it is a grand opera, and this indeed is music. This suits me. A tenor, large and fresh as the creation, fills me. The orbic flex of his mouth is pouring and filling me full. I hear the trained soprano. What works with hers is this. The orchestra whirls me wider than Uranus flies. It wrenches such ardors from me, I did not know I possessed them. It sails me, I dab with bare feet. They are licked by the indolent waves. I am cut by bitter and angry hail. I lose my breath, steeped amid honeyed morphine, my windpipe throttled in fakes of death, and let up again to feel the puzzle of puzzles. That, what we call being, which is the essence of our being, is love. And for me, that's why the arts are worth it. I mean, why bother singing about something that's in your life if it's not going to help you? Why bother sharing it if it's not going to help someone else feel better? Maybe feeling you're singing a sad song helps them feel more healing. And to me, the reason why it's all worth it to learn to do well, to learn a skill, to share things is because we're all worth it. And the arts, I like the way Susanne Langer, a German esthetician, states that the arts provide us with objective symbols for the expression of human feelings. Because you're in a bad mood. You are depressed. You are blissful. You are happy. Those are global states. So we need global things, symbols of that, to hand to each other so that we can respond to that. And so you can dance your feelings, you can share your feelings through a dance much more accurately and thoroughly, maybe thoroughly is a better word, than you can explain them. In other words, I can feel your feelings by the way you throw that Coke bottle against the brick wall. I can feel your feelings as you do that. 2, health is inner peace, healing is letting go of fear. if you're at peace, all the practicing can come to you, can go into your fingers, can go into your mouth, can go into your breathing, can go into your mind a lot easier than if you're full of fear. If you're concerned about getting it right, you can't be completely involved in doing it right. And so, the choosing peace is the thing that allows us to perform completely well. We respond to the music. We want to sing well. We want to perform well. So as you step into the performing, as you show up for the song, as you give all of your being to it, then it's a lot easier to choose peace, because you're not so involved in holding on to fear for your survival. Giving and receiving are the same. Well, if the essence of our being is love, I believe that if I want to, let's say differently. One way of saying it is an idea never leaves its source. So if I want you to feel love, I have to experience it first and then extend it to you. So I literally cannot share love with you without giving it to myself. And what's fun is then, that means that I can receive love from you and end up giving back to you and end up giving to myself. And the past is gone, the future ain't here yet, you know. And when you're in the middle of performing music, I mean, you can't worry about the mistake you just made, or you know, that the teacher who yelled at you last week is in the audience. You know, you've got to be in there performing the song. But they're not approachable. You can't get them. You can't get the past and the future. All you can do is project on them. This is the only time there is, and each instant is forgiving. Well, we know that that's true. You know, if we stop and think about it, we live one instant at a time. But that's not how we perceive life. But music is performed one sound at a time. And our brain perceives the combination of that as a form. Music is felt as a form moving through time. It's made by one sound at a time being given, or one group of sounds being given at a time.
Unfolding.
Unfolding, right. And our brain interprets that unfolding as a unit, as a form. We can learn to love ourselves and others by forgiving rather than judging. You can't perform the song if you expend energy beating yourself up about the mistake you just made. You've got to forgive that and keep on going. So by having to let go of your mistakes, having to forgive yourself, having to release yourself, you end up loving yourself. Well, it's the same thing. You love the audience by being present for the audience. And let's say the audience gets really rowdy. Well, if you let that bother you, then you can't sing the song. I remember when I was an elementary music specialist, how hard it was to ignore the 3 kids that weren't acting the way I wanted them to, and pay attention to the 27 that were. Oh, he's like, ooh, they're so hard, you know. We can be love finders rather than fault finders. I finally learned I had to focus on the ones that were responding. Well, let's see, if the essence of our being is love, if that's our truth, then it doesn't matter whether we're learning how to make a trill with our voice, or a trill on the flute. We have a professional flutist over here. Doesn't matter whether you're learning to do that. If you're present and you lay down judgment and you just give it your best, you're loving yourself, the composer, and the audience. Or you can sit there and you could tie yourself in knots and just think you're a horrible person because you can't do it right. So we have a choice of whether we want to find the love in the situation or not. And I believe since the truth of us is there, all we really have to do is try to get out of the way. And so as we choose to not find fault, have our honest reactions, but not go around finding fault with things, the truth, the love is going to emerge. You don't have to make love emerge. It's the truth that comes. We can choose to direct ourselves to be peaceful inside regardless of what is happening outside. Well, I remember the time that I really blew that in a church. We were singing the tenor chorale from Bach Cantata 140, the Bach Auf. And that's followed by an SATB chorale. The tenor chorale is a chorale prelude where the tenor line is sung in long notes and the organ or the orchestra goes around it. And then after that is one verse of an SATB chorale. Well, we were going along having the band sing the whole thing, and the organist was doing a fine job, and I felt that the audience was not responding. I felt the congregation was not with us, and I felt this hole. And I couldn't stand it, so I refused to do the chorale. I just said, no, we're done with it. That's yourself. You know, I was too afraid to, no, we're not going to work. In the middle of the song, we all learn that no matter what goes wrong, you can make choices for peace and to keep going. You got to keep going. Well, if you drive yourself nuts by keeping going, it ain't going to work. That's the only thing you can do is relax, let go of whatever's there. So we learn that we're responsible for our reactions. Our reactions come so fast that we don't feel that we're responsible for them, but we are the ones generating them. We are students and teachers to each other. Man, I learn so much more from my students than they do from me. It's wonderful, but it's also from the audience. My first experience, like memory of hearing a professional singer was the mezzo-soprano Nan Merriman. I don't know if you remember her. The high school I was at, and it was community concerts, and she came up and she said, I am so grateful for this opportunity to share this music with you. I'm blessed by it. It's the first time I'd ever been to anything like that, and I knew she was being honest. I could just sense that she really meant it. Well, I know that from experience now. We can focus on the whole of life than the fragments. That unfoldment turning into a form, we have an entire piece to perform. We can enjoy the sense of the whole piece, or we can get ourselves so tied up in the details that we're not allowed to enjoy the piece. And every one of us have done that or heard performances that way, and we have that opportunity to have the encouragement of the global growth or the larger performance. Since love is eternal, death need not be viewed as fearful. As I mentioned earlier, some people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of dying. I don't like memorizing because as a teacher and conductor, I don't memorize a lot, so it's not a habit of mine. So if I give a recital and memorize, the last recital I did, I told myself I was going to die if I did not remember my lines. That's the only way I could do it. Somehow you've got to take this seriously enough to make sure you go there. We find in the studio, the first time a person sings for a performance party, the greatest joy is they're still alive after it. We can always perceive ourselves and others as either extending love or giving a call for help. If love is a reality, then love is always the issue. Either you're expressing love or you want to be loved. Even if you're angry, you're afraid. And so in singing, in music, whether it's, let's say you're expressing something sad, that's our human cry for love. And we know that we can't deal with our feelings, our negative feelings, if we can't express them, if they're stuffed. So Attitudinal Healing does not ever say stuff your feelings. It says don't, as in Gurdjieff terms, don't identify with them, don't become one with them. Have them, express them, honor your humanness. And so in singing, sometimes we do sad songs, sometimes we do happy songs. And sometimes people don't like what we do with our music, and sometimes they do, and it's their issue, it's not ours. So to me, is there any question? I mean, so to me, all of this is the same. Just because I'm that way, there's literally no difference for me from teaching, learning, and performing singing, and my being on a spiritual path to find peace and forgiveness.